Good afternoon, class. So as promised, I am going to provide you with some sample test questions. I have 7 questions here. The 7 questions cover the different styles that are going to be on the test, the multiple choice, the fill in the blank, and the short answer. I did not include a visual one, like I said in class, because of the fact we've done so much with the visual aspect. Just keeping in mind that the visuals, I'm going to actually give you an advertisement that you haven't seen before. You're going to have to describe the advertisement, as in what does it look like, if it's in color, what colors are you seeing, and give the details there. Then you're going to have to say how it uses ethos, logos, and pathos. And finally, you're going to have to say if it's effective or ineffective. It is actually the highest pointed question because it has those 6 parts to it. So you're describing the image, then you're going ethos, logos, pathos, and then you're saying effective and ineffective. So those are your 6 points. And again, like we saw in If the Japanese article today, and we saw that things could be effective and ineffective at the same time. So the ads have that same possibility. Now I'm going to start with a couple multiple choice questions. These questions, just to note, are not on the test. Okay, these are sample ones so that you understand how I work with things. Okay. So the first question is a multiple choice question. So you will notice here it does have 4 choices. I start the year with 4 choices. As the year goes on, I move it up to 5 choices because the AP test has 5 choices. So I will eventually, probably around December, January, move into the 5 choice option. So looking at the first question, which of the following is most likely to be described as imperturbable? Now, if you know what imperturbable means, then you can easily pick out from the 4 choices. Even if you don't know what imperturbable means, or don't remember, just by looking at the 4 choices, you can see which one is not like the other. Okay, imperturbable means something that's calm or not easily disturbed, so you can't agitate it. Whereas a rodeo bull, we know, is very easily agitated. A killer bee will not stop until it stings, and the same thing with a wild boar. It doesn't stop, it keeps running and running and running until it hits its target. Whereas a guide dog, so the answer here would be D, a guide dog is trained with the idea of having to stay calm, to keep that peace. So that's important that you note that. So this is one style of the multiple choice. Now, the second multiple choice question is also a vocabulary one. Now, this style, if you're noticing here that in the parentheses at the beginning, I will label it as find the antonym or find the synonym. Now, that means that for the vocabulary word that is in bold, from the choices, you need to find the antonym. And it's not just the antonym in general, but it's the antonym to how it's used within the sentence. So high-level mathematics can be arcane to the layperson. Layperson is a synonym for the everyday person. Okay? So now looking at the antonyms, they will always have the synonym in here. Okay? Arcane means mysterious. It means difficult to understand. So we can automatically cross this one out because that's the synonym for arcane. We don't want the synonym. We want the antonym. So make sure that you are following and paying attention to what it is actually looking for. Okay? Now, looking at the antonym for arcane, if you guessed D, you are correct because it's not arcane. Arcane means difficult to understand or mysterious. Okay, so simple does not fit within that realm. Okay, moving on to a literature style question, multiple choice. Now this one I didn't put in the piece of literature's name, and I did not put in the 4 choices. I did this because then it would limit me too much on what I could ask, but at least this gives you an idea of this type of question. Which of these is not part of the SOAPs for the blank. So this would be the article title. Now here in these 4 choices, what I would put, so like, give an example, this is Crackberry Congress, then here I would list 4 choices that fit within this. So I might put an occasion, I might put an audience, I might put a purpose, I might put a subject. Now, of these 4, one of them is wrong. Okay, that's why the idea of paying attention to the nots. So yes, it is important that you know the SOAPs for the pieces of literature that we did. You do not need to know the SOAPs for the Albert Einstein one. We didn't write it in our notes. We didn't go over it in class. We didn't go over it on one of the videos. So the Albert Einstein article or letter that he responded to Phyllis, you do not need to know the SOAPs for. But all of the other ones we wrote down as a class or did notes, you need to know. Okay? The last multiple choice example is by far my favorite. I love questions like this, and so does the AP test or the College Board. So I will give you a quote. It will be something from the pieces that we have discussed. It will not be a random quote. And the quote will then be followed by, which of the following does the quote contain? You will have 3 choices: ethos, logos, pathos. Now, whatever the quote is, looking at it specifically, not knowing the rest of the piece of literature or not bringing in aspects from the rest of the piece of literature, look at specifically those words. Remember, we've also talked about the fact that things can be labeled with more than one thing. Again, here I didn't give you a quote because I didn't want to limit myself. But looking at this, so you have a 1, 2, and a 3. So looking down here at choices A, B, C, D, so this is what makes this question complex, is the fact that not only do you have 3 choices here, but now you got to decide how it should be distributed. It doesn't mean that these are always going to be the choices, but this is how I would label the choices. Okay, it will usually always have an ethos, logos, pathos up here as your choice here, but then looking at your choices here is definitely different. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to some fill in the blank. Now this, remembering no word bank. So you need to know this. It can be vocabulary words. It can be definition words from pages 36 to 38 in the textbook. It can be anything from what we've discussed this last week and a half. So anything is open. Okay? So the 3 points of blank include speaker, audience, and subject. 3 points gives you a clue. The only thing that we have covered this week and a half that has 3 points is a triangle. So look at the hints and the clues. It's very much in the context aspects. Plus you should remember the idea of the audience, the subject, and the speaker. Now with a question like this that refers to Aristotle's triangle, I will accept 2 different answers. I would accept Aristotle's triangle. I would accept Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. Either is perfectly fine and correct. Okay, last fill in the blank option is the S in SOAPs stands for blank and blank. Now when I do the fill in the blank questions, if each blank is worth 1 point. So this question would actually be worth 2 points. This question would be worth 1. The multiple choice is worth 1. Okay, so the S in SOAPs. So I'm asking what these mean. So I'm asking you to give me those meanings. So 1 is going to be speaker, 1 is going to be subject. They are interchangeable. They don't have to go in the correct order because we talked about this in class and on the video about the fact that there really is no correct order. Just the fact that they are both included is important. Okay? Last style of question is the is the short answer that I'm going to show you. Let me move this up so that we can actually see it better. Who is the intended audience for Toni Morrison's letter to Barack Obama? Why and how is this shown? So these questions are usually going to be worth 3 to 5 points. It's asking for multiple things. That's why there are 2 questions here. So the first aspect is this idea of the intended audience. Excuse my line, I just, for some reason, with the mouse can't draw a straight line. So you're looking for audience. This comes from the SOAPST. We wrote down the SOAPST for this and discussed this in great detail. So we want the intended audience. Now, if you remember from our notes and what we wrote down for the SOAPST for this piece, there are two intended audience. The first one is the letter that she actually wrote, who she addressed it to, which is Barack Obama. And then there is the audience, or sorry, the readers of the New York Times. We say the readers of the New York Times because that's where she published it. So those are her two intended audiences. And then here we do why and how is this shown. So my first sentence would probably be, because short answers always have to be answered in complete sentences. That's in space complete. So full complete sentences. I don't need all the fluff, just get right to the answer. You don't have to have an introductory sentence, but you do have to connect to the question. So my first question might or my first sentence might actually read, and I'm going to switch to the keyboard so I can actually type for you. My first sentence would probably read something along the lines of Toni Morrison's intended audience includes Barack Obama and the readers of the New York Times. Now, this here, it refers back, so it talks about Toni Morrison, it talks about intended audience. So it actually refers back to the question itself. I'm going to make this a little smaller so that I can type more. Never mind. It's not going to work because my camera is in the corner. So my next sentence would then read something along the lines of answering the question, why and how is this shown? I would say something along the lines of, this is shown because Morrison, now see, I already referred to her the first time with her full name, so anytime I refer to her later, I can do with just her last name, which can help you move a little faster. So we can go, this is shown because Morrison published her article, or published her letter, so we're getting more specific, in the New York Times with the intention of, and then I would say something along the lines of being able to persuade readers, going back to purpose. So this actually, not only is it asking about intended audience, but in essence, it's asking you to connect the purpose in there as well. Okay? I hope this helps in preparation for the test. Again, there are no other questions with this. This video is just to help you. I hope you do well. In fact, I hope you do better than most of you did on the summer reading. This test is worth double the points of the summer reading test. Summer reading test was worth 40 points. This test is worth 80. I do this on purpose because I know the summer reading test scores are going to be low. To help get you more time on Friday, show up on time, sit down, pull out a black or blue ink pen, and be prepared to work. No dead word list on this one. So just a pen, that is all you need. If you want whiteout, I am perfectly okay with that. I will provide you with the test and the paper. Have a good night, study lots, and I will see you on Friday.